op-ed, opinion pieces. I like when I can put my voice into it. I hate reporting. I do some of that just because, but it's very ungratifying for me. I like to come up with an interesting idea, an interesting opinion, to me anyway, and put it together in a crafty way that's eloquent and uses the words right and says exactly what I mean, really captures my ideas. And when I've done that successfully, it's the best feeling. And when I haven't done that successfully, it's empty. I can't read the piece again. When it gets published, I don't even want to look at it. I feel it, viscerally. I'm very connected to the work, but I prefer op-eds.
Do you notice any significant differences between the liberalism you encounter in journalism versus the liberalism you encounter in academia versus liberalism you may encounter in other spheres that you've moved in?
Yeah. I think what they have in common, and I don't want to sound critical, although I am, I think what they have in common is there's sort of an arrogance to liberal academia, liberal journalism, liberalism in general, that I think assumes that everyone who's smart and capable must believe, sort of the standard liberal pieties. And if you don't, well, then you're just dumb, or you're just backwards, or uncultured, or unsophisticated, or you're Satan. There doesn't seem to be a lot of room for sort of smart intellectual conservatism. That just doesn't exist on the left. And so I think they're right to feel like everyone believes it because academia is very liberal. They're surrounded by people who believe what they believe, and so is journalism. But at the same time, it just becomes so overwhelming, this arrogance, that it really stifles any kind of checks and balances. There's just no room for checks and balances on a liberal campus or at a liberal publication because no one's doing the checks. The people doing the checks believe what the people being checked are espousing. So it's a dishonest system, I think.
What are the differences between the way that conservatives view liberals and the way that liberals view conservatives?
Yeah, I think Tucker Carlson said this best in our book when we interviewed him. He said, conservatives don't really have a problem being friends with liberals, but liberals don't have a category for people that they like personally but dislike politically. That just doesn't happen. So, you'll be at a party and a group of liberals will hear that you're a Republican and they'll sort of, turn away and literally walk away. I don't think conservatives do that. I don't want to generalize, but I really haven't experienced that. I would never do that. Like I said, I feel like I can compartmentalize, and it doesn't seem like liberals can do that because the liberal philosophy, Jonah Goldberg said this really well too in our book. It's a universal life philosophy. It's total. It's complete. It dictates what kind of toilet paper you use, what kind of music you listen to, what kind of coffee you drink, what kind of clothes you wear. And conservatism is a partial life philosophy. It doesn't dictate any of those things, and rightly so, I think. So, I can listen to alternative music. I'm allowed to do that. I'm allowed to watch Jon Stewart. I'm allowed to have a tattoo. In fact, I do.
Where? What?
It's on my leg, on my lower leg, and it's signature of my favorite artist, Kandinsky.
How do you spell the name of the artist?
Kandinsky.
And when did you get this? Just before joining the Marines?
I got it, 5 years ago.
Were you intoxicated?
No. This was predetermined, premeditated. I planned it out. I thought about it for months. I went to museums to find the best signature version. It was deliberate.
Have you ever encountered a a conservative who thought that liberals, ipso facto, because they were liberal, were evil? Or
sure. Oh, of course. Of course.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, that exists on both sides. There are plenty of Republicans who think that Barack Obama's Satan. I mean, really believe it. Truly believe it. And I'm sure there are plenty of Republicans who think that you have to be somewhat evil to be a liberal. That happens on both sides. And the, extreme factions of both parties are pretty closed-minded and intolerant.
How do you like doing TV?
I prefer writing, because I just naturally prefer to be sort of in my own space and not having to worry about, my hair or, my makeup. It just seems so silly. But that said, it's fun. It's not hard. And, I get to meet a lot of really interesting people. So for me, it's a great way to promote my writing, and that's enjoyable for me. That makes it worthwhile for me. So I'm happy to do it.
What role does looks play in the making of a pundit, either male or female?
I don't know. I mean, in my naivete, I like to think that, if you're smart and you're articulate and you have something interesting to say, you could get on TV. I don't know if that's true, but I like to believe that's true. I know a lot of pundits, and some of whom I would not encourage to enter, a modeling competition. But I think the people that end up there are either wildly entertaining or have something smart and interesting to say. That's how I like to imagine it.
I once read a theory about writers that looks in a male writer make them seem shallow, while looks in a female writer make them seem glamorous.
Glamorous, sure, but not necessarily smart. And that's something that I think women writers have to battle all the time. I've come upon a number of people who have had very low expectations of me, just because I'm a young woman writer, and I'd have had to prove myself, and that's okay. I mean, I don't mind having to prove myself, but I think women have to combat. If you're good looking, I think you have to combat being glamorous, and if you're less good looking, I think you have to prove that you can be dynamic and watchable and someone that people want to listen to. So and I imagine men have similar hurdles. I think you're probably right that good looking men have to prove that they have some substance, and less good looking men probably have to prove that they're very, very smart.
How big of a battle did you have to fight in this regard?
It hasn't just been on TV. I mean, I think young women, I'm an academic, really. I mean, I'm getting a master's, and I write a lot of academic work as well, and that exists at the academic level too. I think some professors see as kind of a lightweight. You're a young woman who doesn't have, the prototypical image of an academic, with the glasses or, slightly disheveled, I don't know, but you have to combat it in a lot of different arenas, and that just is how it is. And if I have to prove myself and work harder, I don't mind doing that.
Do you have to fight that battle? I'm sorry?
Feminists are going to love me.
I'm sorry, somebody's going to love you?
Feminists are going to love me.
Oh, right. Yeah. Do you have to fight less of a battle than 5 years ago or 10 years ago? You've racked up some accomplishments. You've racked